Hi, it's Josephine from the Pointe shop, and I'm fitting in the Oakland showroom today, and I'm fitting Hayden's first pair of Pointe shoes. We are super excited. This is my first fitting of the new year, so this is very special for me too. And I wanted to show you guys Hayden's Pointe shoe fitting because her big toe is a lot longer than the rest of her toes. If there's a lot of pressure in your big toe, you start to do kind of strange things. You start to sickle a little bit because you're trying to take pressure off your big toe. And sometimes you can get a bruised toenail, so you really want to protect that big toe or any toe that you have that might be a little bit longer than other toes. So I wanted to address that today because one of the things when you're first going up on Pointe is that we want to prevent pain as much as possible, because if it's too painful, you're not going to want to put your Pointe shoes on. So we definitely keep that in mind to make sure that it's a little bit more comfortable for you, and so that you learn to love Pointe and not hate it and want to take your Pointe shoes off. So I'm going to keep everything else in mind that I normally do for a first pair of Pointe shoes. I definitely want it to be soft enough so that you can roll through. The vamp is short enough so that all of her little toes are able to articulate as well, and also that she is stable. But the main thing with Hayden today is to take pressure off of that big toe and make sure that nothing is hurting. You curl your big toe a little bit. Can you lift and uncurl your toe? Quick. Very good. So that's another thing that you want to keep in mind as well, is that if your big toe is a little bit longer, it tends to curl a little bit more. Generally speaking, if you have longer toes, you have a tendency to curl a little bit more. And she's nice and well aligned. She's not sickling or doing anything funky. So my main issue here is to take pressure off of that big toe. And like almost everyone else, she has two different length feet. So I also want to make sure that her bigger foot isn't pressing either, because a lot of times you kind of get a shoe that's in between your two sizes, and then the bigger foot always tends to jam at the end. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm doing this. So generally when I'm doing a Pointe shoe fitting, I want to do the least amount of padding as possible so that you can really start to articulate your feet. Your feet are closer to the shoe so that it's easier to control it. But in Hayden's case, because her toes are so uneven, I started out right away with a big toe sleeve. So if you have one long big toe, there's two ways of going about it. If you have one long toe, you can either pad the shorter one to make it even, the same length, or you can pad the bigger one so that it takes the pressure off your big toe. I tend to do that method a little bit more so it takes the pressure off, because especially if you have something like this, like a gel one, then it absorbs a lot of the shock. So we're gonna put this on your big toe just to start out with. And it's this is a very stretchy one. Sometimes you can get a big toe sleeve that's really tight and it kind of cuts off your circulation, so we don't want to do that either. So this is stretchier, so it doesn't really do that. And then I'm gonna go with the regular toe pad that covers all of the sides, and I also make sure that both of the joints on the big toe side and on the pinky side are covered so that there's no knuckles that are sticking out right now. I am giving her a slightly more tapered shoe because her toes are really tapered, but I'm also giving her a slightly bigger platform than perhaps like a Russian shoe, just because I want her to be able to balance a little bit better. Bring your right foot up on Pointe, then press up on both feet. Very good. Straighten your knees all the way. Good. So I am going as tapered as I can without taking away the stability, because that's also really important for a first pair of Pointe shoes. So it is still a pretty big platform so that she can balance on it, but it's shaped a little bit more tapered than usual so that her big toe isn't pressing at the end. Cross it into fifth position. So generally speaking, if you're looking at tapered toes, you want to look for a tapered shoe. That's not always the case, because if you're wobbling, then you have to go with a wider platform so that you can balance a little bit better. But Hayden doesn't wobble at all. Her ankles are really stable. She's totally ready for her first pair of Pointe shoes. I think you had an injury before, right? Your left ankle, but I don't see that injury at all. So that's a really good sign. Usually I can tell if there's something wrong or if you've injured it in the past, but she looks very strong. She looks super ready. Can you bring your left foot forward for me? So this was the injured one, but she still looks pretty good. So if you have one long toe, whether it's your big toe or your second toe, you want to have a shoe that's a little bit more tapered enough, and you can play around with different padding so that you can make sure that the pressure is off of that. Okay, so if you have any questions, if you have any pain, leave that on the comments, and then I will answer that in the next video. Thank you so much.